So hi everyone, and welcome to TravMedia Meets. I'm Henry Hemming, Global Advisor to TravMedia, and delighted in that new capacity to still be presenting these wonderful webinars. So it's our fourth event of 2024, the second in our epic new mini-series as TravMedia Meets goes in conversation with some of the very top names in our business. And when it comes to naming a travel journalist at the top of their game, top of the class, top of the world, appropriately, there's certainly one guy in with a meteoric shout, and that of course is our guest today, travel journalist, travel broadcaster, travel commentator, Mr. Travel in short, Simon Calder. Simon, lovely to have you here with us.
Well, it's very nice to be here, and I have seen your notes actually, Henry, and it did say cheap and available. But I'm absolutely honoured and delighted to be talking to so many great professionals this afternoon. And thank you very much indeed for your questions so far. And we're looking forward to more coming in as we speak.
No, we're thrilled, Simon. And as I said, the check is in the mail. It's wonderful to have you here with us. So everyone, before we leave the departure lounge and actually board this flight, so to speak, a little bit of housekeeping. We just wanted to say we're thrilled to welcome today. We've had registrations from over 300 media PR professionals, not just in the UK, but around the world, which is terrific. So we've opened this up. We've got PRs and media also from the USA, Asia, and Australia. Thank you all, wherever you are, for joining this TravMedia Meets. I imagine one or two of you will actually watch this on catch up. In the UK, we've got PRs representing destinations and brands as varied as France to Butlins, Carnival to the Daily Mail, Disney to Intrepid Travel. Wonderful. And I just want to remind you, as I always do hit us with questions. Your questions are always so revealing. Use the Zoom Q&A. I'd love to give you a shout out. Zoom will tell me your name. It won't tell me your company name. So if you could remember to put that in at the end of your question, just in case I don't know who you are, that would be brilliant. And go mad on social. We love seeing your Instagram posts and your blog posts. So Simon Calder, I think the thing we can say about you is that everyone is super aware of who you are. But nevertheless, I think I should do a few notes at the beginning, especially to our worldwide viewers today. So you're recognised as Britain's leading travel commentator. You're omnipresent in UK media and often overseas titles. You've won countless awards. You are known as the man who pays his way because you don't accept free travel. You were born within earshot of Gatwick. That's where it all started. After that, you began your travel career cleaning out planes, working for Freddie Laker's revolutionary Skytrain operation, where you were involved in frisking people. Those are your words, by the way, not mine. But for those in the audience too young to remember, Skytrain was like the first ever low-cost flights to America, where Brits actually posed as members of things like bird-watching societies to get a cheap deal. That is actually true. Simon cracked travel with writing guidebooks, including the very first to Cuba, covered off North America, Central and South America. He's been writing as a travel journalist in anger since the early 90s, took a call from the Independent, became the travel editor of the Independent, has covered everything from Eurostar to 9/11 and from the Icelandic volcano to the pandemic. I say in anger because I think your first actual travel spot was on Radio 1 in 1980. And I think you probably just left primary school at the time, Simon. I'm not quite sure.
Very, very kind of you, Henry. In fact, I was a late starter. I got my job at the Independent, 30 years ago, having had a career which included frisking people at Gatwick, quite correctly, as a job, not a hobby.
Yeah.
I then went to I taught maths for a short time. Me and Ramesh Ranganathan actually are separated at birth because we both come from Crawley. We both went to school there and graduated in maths and went back to our schools to teach maths. So there we are. And then I was an engineer for 15 years. So it's been all downhill since then, bluntly. And can I just say, Lorraine's put the first question in, where are you? And I think we should make this a bit of a competition.
Yeah, okay.
If you don't mind. There's a clue behind me in the ferry there, but yeah, it'd be really nice to see.
And TravMedia will award a spot prize to whoever gets it right on the Q&A first. Good call, Simon. So just to let me just finish off the plaudits. So you report for the BBC, ITV, CNN, and Sky. You've reported for ITV's Good Morning Britain Live from Australia, the first person to step off the non-stop scheduled flight from the UK in 2018. You're also the first overseas journalist to re-enter the US after the COVID closure, walking across the Rainbow Bridge as clocks struck midnight. Although we don't hear striking clocks these days. During COVID, you were the guru who understood what the regulations were. That one person, you cracked the algorithm of whether you could leave your house, how far you could travel, and whether you had no excuse anymore but to visit your grandparents. You held Facebook Lives and Instagram Lives every single day, weekends included, winning a TravMedia award in the process for outstanding contribution. I do remember how you had at Rotterdam Ferry Terminal stayed behind to help all senior travellers complete their forms. So well done, Simon. That was an amazing act of selflessness. So summarising, it just seems to me that you're one of the very few sector-specific journalists who have become household names. You know, everyone knows that Simon's the travel specialist. And we are incredibly delighted to have you here with us today.
Well, that's very kind. I actually get mistaken for lots of people. So somebody actually yesterday said, "You're Nick Trend." Marvelous man from the Telegraph, and it's very disappointing when they find out that I'm not. I've also had Louis Theroux, Nicholas Crane, who's very good, and sometimes I just, if they ask for an autograph, I will sign it as to who they think I am rather than who I am. But there we are, and some wrong answers here, I'm afraid. So not Portsmouth, not Dover, not Plymouth, not Southampton, not Santander, not Felixstowe. Thanks very much indeed for trying. Brittany, France, no, not Lave, not who, and we have a winner. It's Linda Greenman, and I am in Cherbourg. So there we are. I think those that wad of cash is already on its way to your house. So Laura, so thank you very much for that.
Laura is Magnetic North Travel's managing director. Well done, Laura. We will send you a lovely prize from the TravMedia team. Might not be the wad of cash that Simon has just mentioned, but it will be something good. So Simon, I think just to kick off, you were kind enough to give us some words in the run-up to today. And you said, take it from me, after 3 decades in travel journalism, the opportunities, but also the challenges never been bigger. Anyone with an internet connection or smartphone can create a blog, become a TikTok persona, and inspire, entertain, and inform travelers. But against that rising supply of content, exponentially rising every day, there are dwindling editorial funds. So it makes the whole business of travel writing and influence a bit more precarious. So Simon, where are we now?
Well, it's either very, very exciting or absolutely terrifying. And so therefore actually a bit of both. Of course, the big concern is that the extent to which the big 5 tech firms, that's Apple, Amazon, Meta, of course, Facebook, Microsoft, and Google, are controlling so much of the media, so much of what we see, so much of what we read. The traditional advertising model has fallen apart. I mean, if you go back to, I guess, 2003, 2004, I'd be interested to take comments on that. I think that was probably peak traditional travel media, when the Sunday Times and the Daily Telegraph on a Saturday, you actually had to have a truck to help deliver the travel section. There was so much of it. That has gradually dwindled. I mean, both those fantastic papers are doing great things, but it's in no way comparable. Those were if you want to look at traditional media, the glory times. However, now it's a wonderful democratization, just in the same way that the low-cost airlines have democratized travel, because until well, let's carbon date it to 1995, EasyJet, until they came along, basically fares were just a joke. You could not, if you're a normal person, afford just to pop across to Europe for a weekend. That has now thankfully become much more possible. But on top of that, of course, the internet has enabled anybody, as you were saying, with a internet connection to become a travel journalist. And I absolutely welcome that and celebrate the fact that people from all kinds of different backgrounds can contribute and hopefully build an audience. The big problem, of course, is persuading that audience that it would be a really good idea to help sustain travel journalism. And I think that's one of those very difficult prospects. How are we going to manage that?
Yeah. I mean, Google and Facebook may have dramatically reduced their referrals to news sites. I don't know whether it's they see news as toxic or it's just their own agenda for growth. But do you see the worldwide traveller still relying on the experiences and endorsements of journalists, even digitally, in the years and decades ahead, Simon?
Well, I do, in the same way that we've seen the traditional travel agent come back. I mean, let's not talk too long about COVID because we've got to look forward. But one of the things which came out of that was that actually travel professionals were looking after their clients. And in the same way, anybody from travel journalists specializing in consumer issues to fantastic writers who are writing brilliant color pieces to guidebook writers. I mean, I'm call me old school, but I've got a guidebook here. It's fantastic. They are the trusted voices, and the more complex, the more troubled, the more content there is around, the more you need it curated. And of course, there's a fantastic way to do that is through trusted sources, whether they are online, whether they're in print. So yeah, it's an exciting time, but clearly the whole industry of travel journalism, reporting on what's really the industry of human happiness, is in a bit of a pickle at the moment, I would say. And in that, of course, is mirrored in things such as mainstream traditional terrestrial television and how they are finding their way through. So it's tricky. I mean, I will just there's subscriptions which are great, and if you look at the fantastic Dan Snow, his history industry, his business is marvelous. He's got I think 70,000 subscribers who are paying him money for fantastic content, and that's one way to do it. Now, it's not the way that everybody can do it, but it is a solution, and it's fantastic that he is able to do that. I'm perfectly happy to say what I subscribe to. So the BBC, for example, which you don't have much choice in doing, but I'm happy to pay 170 there a year for a license fee. About the same for The Economist. There's a kind of budget version you can get for the Times where it's smartphone only, which frankly is absolutely fine, for a bit less than that. But I used to subscribe, sorry, Telegraph people, I used to subscribe to the Telegraph, but then I think the most recent price rise, I just thought, it's great content, and I wish there was a model where I could read some really good travel writing and pay per article, but there isn't at the moment. And I just thought, no, I won't sign in with that. And I'm an avid consumer of media, but of course so much is it's available online for nothing, thank you, Guardian. And of course the Independent has this hybrid model where you can get a good clear premium run and lots of extra material, or you can get the standard experience, shall we say. So lots and lots of options there, but my goodness, getting people to pay for content when so much of it is available for free is a tricky one.
Yeah, I'm interested in how you think media titles will best monetize moving forward, whether it's advertising or whether it's paywall. Very interestingly, the tabloids are now saying on the cookies pop up, do you accept the cookies? No, right, you've got to pay to read this page. Yeah. So there's some quite aggressive maneuvers out there, Simon. What do you think the media have to do to survive?
Oh, look, it's not so much. Look, the audience is always right. That goes without saying. And so if the audience is prepared to pay, and I applaud the many cases in which it is, then that's absolutely fantastic. If not, and you're one of these sites like the Mail, for instance, which basically, or indeed Reach, which is increasingly well, to use your term, aggressive, and that's entirely up to it. It can do whatever it thinks is the most important thing for its survival, for it to flourish. So, but the thing is, there will always be other places where you can get maybe equivalent information, and of course, sitting there being all things to all people is the BBC. And goodness, if you simply want a rundown of what's happening in the world, then no ads. It's all there. And thank you very much indeed, BBC. Oh well, we're all sort of paying for it, but it's an odd kind of subscription model.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's turn to the travel industry itself. We've seen another explosive year of travel this year. Perhaps not quite the same as last year, where people were making up for a couple of lost years in their lives. But there are new challenges facing the industry. I've got a good question here from Tracy Boggio-Magnus, UK Head Media Marketing for Gibraltar. Tracy, hi. Thanks. She says, my question relates to the responsibility of destinations in terms of the negative impacts of, term that's going to come up often, over tourism. Should the consumer be made more aware by the media of what they can do towards lessening the impact of travel? Or is it down to the tourism industry alone? Is it a shared responsibility? Simon, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, look, over tourism has been in the headlines far more this year than I can remember any other time. And of course, it's absolutely brilliant that we are having this discussion, and that various different destinations are coming up with their own ways of managing it. So you've got Venice charging €5. I very much expect that to go up for day trippers who aren't staying over. You've got Amsterdam, who are threatening to do with things with cruise ships limits. Barcelona, the same. A large part of it, I would suggest, and I'm not sure, Tracy, if this is an issue particularly in Gibraltar, which obviously has a very finite stock of hotel beds, but Airbnbs, which are trespassing on the hotel stock. So in Barcelona, for example, there have been investors who have actually decided, right, we're going to buy an entire apartment block and put out the whole lot on Airbnb. And guess what? If you're a Catalan living in Barcelona, you are not going to be able to rent that place because it's being punted out to holidaymakers. And I think that, it's great staying in hotels because they're intended for us. It is a problem there. You've got things like Byron Bay in Australia saying, yeah, you can stay in an Airbnb if you want, but by the way, we're going to tax you 20%, and that levy is going straight towards social housing, which strikes me as a really neat way of turning a problem into a future solution. But that's also, if you're in Australia, there's a little bit of room to expand your housing stock. I've noticed that's not necessarily the same in central Barcelona. Right. Well, first of all, as discussed, it's absolutely completely any destination's right to be able to say, here's the amount of tourism we want. And it's terrific that we are getting this discussion going. So I think that's very, very important. However, it's also the case that it's going to be a little bit self-limiting, in the sense that have you been, Henry, to Rome in July or August in the last couple of years? Actually, probably going back to 2022 as well. If you've been there during the day in late July, you are just going to think, thanks very much. I don't think I'll do this again. I will go to another beautiful Italian city which isn't absolutely full. And from point of view, it's a really good thing that we're having the discussion. And the one thing which I think is slightly misguided is UK cities which are charging £1 or £2. If you're going to put on a tourism tax, make it jolly well worthwhile.
Thought
Make
that.
it serious. £10, £20, whatever you want to do. Make it seasonal, so that you are saying to people, come and see us in November when nobody else wants to. And meanwhile, here in Cherbourg, they love as many tourists as we can possibly send whenever you like.
All year round. Lovely. And
You know, I'm just improving the microphone setting after that little excitement there. So you should now be getting me hopefully a bit better quality. And I'm sorry about the
very, very loud and clear. Well done, Simon. So your view on Rome in July will be music to the ears of Erin Hickey, PR manager at Visit Scotland. It's this thing about taking tourists into the off season and taking them to the lesser known places. Okay, so Erin says we're really keen to promote Scotland to a domestic audience and in the off season. What should we be doing? And as PRs, communicators, is there anything we should be doing differently?
Well, telling stories is always great. Creating things. Well, I mean, the greatest destination success story in recent history, I would say, is the Wild Atlantic Way in Ireland. And there are clearly Scotland thought, well, we'll have some of that. We'll create the North Coast 500, which takes you through some of the most wonderful places on earth. But unfortunately, it also takes squadrons of camper vans, and that is a real problem because they stock up at Tesco's outside Inverness. They don't bring anything worthwhile to the local community, and that's a huge problem. But to answer the question, what do we do about encouraging people to travel off season? Make it make it worth their while. Come up with great value propositions which basically are persuading people that, oh crikey, I hadn't thought of that. And I'm going to give you an example on Northlink ferries, which are brilliant ferries connecting northern Scotland with Orkney and with Shetland. June till September, forget it. If you get a place, it's going to cost you absolute rack rate, but I am not getting the kinds of really good deals where I can say to people, look, take it from me, the two of the most marvelous archipelagos you'll ever find anywhere. No point, with greatest respect to Emilia from Tourism New Zealand, a great destination too, but it's actually easier to get to Orkney and Shetland. And so just inspire people by the great stories that you can tell about these places, but also hard cash is also good. Do you mind, Henry, if we take a couple of points which have just come in? Vanessa said, I live in Rome, it's October, it's still heavily crowded and people are surprised. Shoulder season don't really exist in Italy from my experience as a resident. So thank you for that. And if we can, I mentioned New Zealand, if I can take Amelia's question, Tourism New Zealand here, how do you promote off-season travel for long-haul destinations when people want sun and warm weather? Well, really good question. So you align with, or align your product, I'd say, Emilia, with Northern Australia, so far north Queensland, Northern Territory, Northern Western Australia. And you're doing that because you are saying, actually, Northern Hemisphere, all these places are best during your summer. So come and have a look. You can have a look at the Bay of Islands, which is actually really lovely year round. And also you can nip down and do some skiing in the middle of your summer. How about that? But it's always going to be tricky. And of course, New Zealand is having more challenges than most destinations rebuilding after COVID. There we are. So thank you for your points, and thank you for letting me make them.
Good. I'm going to take us back to England. We will spread our wings to the wider world in a minute, but I've got a question from Josie Self and Louise Farrell, top PR talents visit England. Says, Simon, there's a lot of data showing film, TV and live events are huge motivators. Are they going to continue to rise in popularity? What's going to come next after set jetting and gig tripping, Mr. Calder?
Well, I don't know. I'm 100 years old. How would I know? But I do know that that this has always been the case. And so, for example, I think you can almost carbon date the idea of going around looking at film sets to 1965, obviously when none of us were alive.
What, Help by the
And we could have another quiz. Do you mind if we do that?
Yeah, sure.
What great film launch in 1965 triggered the idea of set jetting? And let's see what happens. So, but yeah, to answer the question while I'm waiting for some wrong answers to come in. People love it. Of course they do. I love it. Gosh, going to these locations you've seen on screen and then seeing the real thing. It's marvelous. And rainy Greenland has come up already. Sorry, Lisa, not quite right. Sound of Music is it. Yes. And Matt got that as well very, very quickly. So Sound of Music, I would say arguably, I'm very happy to take some heckling in the chat, in the Q&A. I'd say The Sound of Music is the best travel film ever. Astonishing scenes of beautiful Salzburg and the mountains around it looks absolutely marvelous. And I would strongly recommend people go off and write or just enjoy the Sound of Music tour. And thanks, Lindsay. She agrees with that. And no, it wasn't the Italian Job, but that's a whole new subject. So thank you, Samantha and Andrew, for that.
We'll sign off today with the crowd sing along Sound of Music, Simon, like just to make you happy. Help by the Beatles was also 65, which was great for the Bahamas, but not quite.
Okay. And also, forgive me, I can't remember where it was in Switzerland. Where anyway, but there we are. Good.
Yeah. Fantastic.
And,
yeah. Let's go back to a question we got earlier, and that is, we've got Daniela Toporek saying, how can travel editors at the start of their career gain an editor's trust to commission them? So what I want to say, from all your years of experience, we've got people tuning in who are, just started out in the last few years, and they know the pressures they're up against. What advice does Simon give to them about their career?
Oh my goodness. Right. Well, the first thing, which is also what I did early on, is don't give up the day job. Okay. So I was working on guidebooks while I was frisking people at Gatwick and being a maths teacher and being an engineer. And the relatively small amount that I earned from doing guidebooks enabled me to kind of keep traveling, and that was all I wanted to do. So if you have got a job, ideally in travel, because that way you're going to get it's a wonderful industry to work in. Even if you're not in journalism or PR, it's still absolutely great because it's the most human of industries. So you can do that. But the crucial point is, I'm young, I've got ideas, I want to pitch them, and it's very, very difficult. I mean, and when the Independent started, of course, it had a great general no freebies policy, so therefore it's very convenient for them occasionally to take a piece from me, because I didn't have any freebies. Basically because nobody would give them to me, but then it became a sort of a thing. So just please come up with great ideas, and that is so much easier to say than it is to do. But there are good ideas around there. So for example, while I've been walking around beautiful Cherbourg today, things which have struck me have been, I don't like Mondays. Why don't museums in Europe open on Mondays, and what can you do about it? And how widespread is it? Why did it come about? And here's 5 great European museums that don't close on Mondays. Another idea, which for a treatment of New York. Okay, so there's some places, New York included, just hugely overwritten about. So one thing you can do is walk the length of Broadway, which is kind of an all-day experience, but obviously a slice, a beautiful cross-section through that place. And another one which I greatly enjoyed, nothing to do with me, was somebody who just said, right, well, I'm going to New York for the weekend, but I'm going to stay on UK time. So therefore, I'll be wanting to have my breakfast at 2 o'clock in the morning. And where am I going to find the marketplace which is open for that? So there's, oh gosh, look, if the idea is good enough, then I think a travel editor will bite your hand off. But the thing is to come up with ideas, and this is where obviously PRs are absolutely invaluable, to come up with ways of looking at a destination, looking at a concept, and deciding what can be done. But my goodness me, I have to obviously try and come up with new ideas the whole time, and persuade my excellent colleagues at the Independent that they might want to contemplate that. So it's it's just a matter of just keeping thinking. So thank you for those.
In your opinion, Simon, someone at the beginning of their career, to what extent should they include influence and content creation to ensure they're successful? Does that work, or should they just stick to words?
Oh no, look, anything you can do, for goodness sake, it's fantastic. Yeah, you want to do TikTok and you build an audience there, that's absolutely fantastic. You want to create a podcast, brilliant. I'd say that's multimedia is the future, I think. And so anything you can do, if you can become an influencer, well, hats off to you, and happy influencing. And yeah, it's a fantastic thing to be in. Clearly, you then move into this I was going to say interesting, maybe controversial space between where does influencing end and journalism begin, or vice versa. And I think, as always, it's just one of those things where if people understand the deal, and that you are in New Zealand at a ski resort in and enjoying that, and that you're actually being paid to promote it, well, that's fantastic. As long as everyone knows that, they can judge your fantastic content. So
Fantastic.
there we are.
Simon, Sophia Amos, PR account director at Black Diamond, wants to know what pins are being stuck in the Calder map in the run-up to Christmas. Where are you headed in 2025?
Oh, okay, for next year. Yeah. Well, I just have a sort of slightly a short list of places I want to go in the near time. But look, next year.
What would be on that list, Simon?
Well, okay, so the next place I'm going to is Nepal, which embarrassingly I have never been to before, and I shall be doing some trekking there, and very, very much offline for about 3 weeks, which will be, I think, a great relief to everybody. Then I'm going across to the state of Missouri, because it just strikes me that you've got so much of America within that state, and I want to explore it. Then I want to do, and here we are, getting all my ideas. I want to do with the great new opportunities for rail travel in Europe. I want to do at the Christmas Market Express. Where is that going to drop you off, and how much is it going to cost, and what are you going to see when you get there? And in terms of next year, crikey, well, I'm exhausted even thinking about that. I genuinely don't know, and I'm also very, very much in favour, Sophia, of late decisions. So a lot of the time I stay flexible, because I think you can generally often get some fantastic trips. So, for example, the eclipse, which took place, gosh, was it this year in America? I think it was this summer.
Yep.
Fantastic eclipse. April, was it? Yeah, I think that was great. And I decided, I think on the morning, I bought my ticket to Montreal, because this whole thing swept across America, and nobody expected Montreal to rate at all. I was aiming for Niagara Falls originally, but that was all horrible and clouded, as was so much of the rest of it. So I just bought a ticket. I hadn't bought a ticket at all. I bought one to Montreal, and off I went on Avios points there. But very, very much in terms of what's happening next year in America, oh my goodness, it's going to be fantastic. Of course, the build up to the World Cup, which is happening also in Mexico and Canada in 2026. You've got the club championships happening, and sport and travel intersect generally every 2 years, and that's for the Summer Olympics and for the World Cup. And of course, sport and travel this summer in Paris was just a dream. But you've got club championship in the US, which is going to be a kind of warm up for the for the World Cup, and at the same time, things like, if it's still on course, the George Lucas Museum of Amazing Cinema opening in Los Angeles, which I urge you to search online for, because it's going to have, it looks like Thunderbirds, I think Thunderbirds 3, but maybe that's taking me back a bit.
Some amazing stories there. So I think Laura Beth Furnell, PR exec at Carnival, has spotted you are on a cruise, Simon. Says she obviously appreciates you're the man who pays his way, but what are your tips for brands pitching a press trip to you? What do you want to hear? What do you not want to hear?
Oh, look, I'm completely useless about press trips, because obviously there's a couple of things going on. First of all, I am absolutely all in favor of the press trip, a well-run press trip, as a brilliant way of introducing great journalists to a fantastic destination, the niche experiences, whatever it is. So that's all great. And of course, we've got marvelous PRs who are putting together really good trips with a really good choice of journalists who are going to work together, but also deliver their own unique perspective on the place. I'm always keen to hear, of course, from
that's what she's saying. She understands you pay your way, Simon. Yeah. How best to pique your interest about experiencing a Carnival brand?
Well, I'm sort of experiencing a Carnival brand at the moment, because I'm on a boat on the Queen Anne. Thank you very much. And it's a very long story how I came to be here, but and I'm very, very much interested in this, and it's absolutely great talking to people. And by the way, journalists out there is absolutely no substitute for talking to actual people. What are you enjoying? What is it about a cruise that you like? Because a lot of people are going to say, what about what's great about this? What's not so good about it? What should people be doing? Why? Here we are. Here's a question for Carnival. Why would you come to Cherbourg on a Monday when the entire population of a Cunard ship wants to go and see the Museum of the Liberation, which is closed on a Monday? There we are. And so that I mentioned earlier, the I don't like Mondays thing. So yeah, just talking to people is good. But what I want to hear, I want to hear mostly about things which are very inclusive or a really significant development. So I, with the greatest respect, will not be studying your late availability deals. I understand you've got to send them out, and that's great, and good luck for people who pick them up. I am interested in, wham, here you have a rail company, doesn't matter which one it is, wanting to stimulate travel. So 10 quid to anywhere you want to go. And it's almost kind of limitless in terms of the availability. Those are the sorts of deals that I really like. I want to know about fantastic new attractions opening, because I'm only interested in the audience, of course. And the audience wants to know about great deals that they will be able to access. And they also want to know about good, inspiring things. I'm interested in visa changes and actually suddenly places becoming more accessible, and new train routes. The big story this week in Trainland. If anybody can tell me what it is, then I'd be very pleased to know. I'd be pleased to mark you out of 10. But there is one location which has had a really exciting transformation as from yesterday. There we are in terms of the railway. So those are the sorts of things that I really like, and we'll see if anybody comes up with the answer. Anyway, yes.
Fantastic. So consumer rights. I think the award you're most proud of winning is the Hero Award from the Chartered Trading Standards Institute, which in the Call to Home is on an even higher shelf than your TravMedia Award, which I think is perfectly fair. An allied question, very good question, from a new travel writer, Matt Dennis, who says, I'm a new writer. I quit my old job to board the good ship travel writing. And as a disabled travel writer, I write with accessibility in mind. How do you think this aspect, accessibility and so forth, is being incorporated into the mainstream media?
Right. First of all, great question. Secondly, it's fantastic to hear that you are doing this. So it is a really, really important and I think rich theme in travel writing because, of course, increasingly with the demographic, there are increasingly many people who have mobility issues, and so therefore being able to tell that story from the point of view of your own mobility issues is really important. Thankfully, I think the travel industry, and in particular the transport industry, is waking up to that fact, and it's really good to be calling out what's poor practice, but also, of course, what's good practice. Can I just very, very quickly say that both Molly and Vanessa are absolutely right. Grand Central Station opened yesterday. Not the one in New York, that was open already. This one is even better. It's in Belfast. And from next month, I believe there will be trains every hour running to Dublin in about 2 hours flat. So that's great news. So thank you very much indeed for that. So yeah, absolutely go for it. And I hope that the travel editors will be particularly receptive, because they will, of course, understand that this is a proportion of the traveling public who regrettably have been underserved in the past.
Very good. We've got a question from Michael Cluley saying, talking about emissions, tourism accounts for 8% of emissions. Should publications actually only go with, I think they're saying airlines that actually will promise to make the necessary offsets, should they make flight payments mandatory for carbon offsetting?
Look, Michael, that's a fantastic question, and thank you very much indeed, because it takes us entirely into the realm of what damage the travel industry is causing, and it is having a huge environmental impact. Now, there is the argument at one end which says that all industries make a mess. Travel has so many virtues in terms of distributing wealth, in terms of enriching both the traveller and the host community, that you just got to let it unleash it and let the market decide what happens. And at the other end, people saying it is absolutely ridiculous that travel gets away with, for example, no tax on aviation fuel. I think the particular question that you're asking, Michael, I'm not sure that I would say that is that is going to make a huge amount of difference. I think it's really important, and thank you very much indeed for the opportunity to say to people, okay, so to make people more aware of the impact that they will be having if they are going off to New Zealand off season for that dream skiing trip. Important to say, if you're heading to France, why are you flying? I'll tell you, by the way, why I'm flying to France, and that's because flipping Eurostar. And if you're there, welcome to hear from you. You're doing a great job, but you're also a monopoly provider effectively, and therefore you priced yourself out of my consideration. And more widely, I think we could do with far more discussion on ways of traveling, given that the vast majority of people are traveling relatively shorter distances within Europe. How can we do that more efficiently? And one way would be actually to have some decent competition on the Channel Tunnel in order to get that to get people to move. So a great question, thank you. And could you mind if I pick up Henry Justine's question here, following on from Michael's views on ecotourism and whether travel companies are doing enough? Well, everyone could be doing more, certainly. I think any tour operator, for example, should absolutely be informing their their customers as to what is good practice and what they're doing. But the trouble is that you then get in slightly into greenwashing, and it's marvelous. Here we are, we're recycling our rainwater. Yeah, but you're in Tahiti and people have flown 10,000 miles to get there. So it's a tricky business. And I think in general, the most effective way to persuade people to travel in more thoughtful, less impactful ways is probably taxation. And I would welcome much wider discussion on what the cost should be, and whether, for example, the fact that people traveling in business class and first class have monumentally more impact than those of us down the back. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we are in danger though with tax and everything, that travel becomes the privilege of the elite.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's quite. And my goodness, I'm old enough to remember when it was when I was frisking people at Gatwick.
Yeah, legally.
On my very last day, of working there, I left my uniform behind. I then went off on an overnight train, and then I hitchhiked through France and all the way down to Faro in Portugal, and it took 3 days. It was miserable, but there was absolutely no way I could afford to fly. And we won't ever go back to those really bad old days. But if you're going to Paris, where there is a terrestrial alternative, is it right that you got £250 for Eurostar here and you got £50 for EasyJet there? Well, that doesn't strike me as a logical market, and so I think we need to address that. But it's something where I think the government should step in, and the government should guide people's choices through taxation. I think that's perfectly legitimate for dealing with ecotourism and for dealing with over tourism, and indeed with trying to encourage proper ecotourism. But tricky. Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe we need the agreement of leaders of many nations, but we know that those things never actually happen, really. So we've got a question, allied question on the ecotourism point from Phil Bloomfield, Ready to Bloom PR and Communications. He says the industry is about to return to pre-pandemic levels. Everything's hunky-dory. We're rolling in clover, he says. But what lessons would Simon have liked the industry to have learned from the experiences of the pandemic that perhaps we've now forgotten? Have we missed an opportunity there?
Well, look, the pandemic was utterly horrible. So, of course, so many human tragedies involving the virus itself. In terms of what it did to the travel industry, my goodness, I don't get furious about many things, but I get furious when travel companies, whether they're airlines, whether whoever they are, treat people badly, and that infuriates me. But I also was absolutely infuriated with the way that the government mishandled the COVID pandemic. Yeah, nobody had done it before, but honestly, the decisions which were being taken were had no basis whatsoever in any kind of statistical reality. So, and then saying, 17 weeks, you're not, 19 weeks, you're not going on holiday at all. And even if you show up at Southampton Docks or Gatwick Airport, you're going to get fined. I mean, heavy-handed or what? So we learned that people love traveling, which is fantastic. And a lot of people are still absolutely celebrating that fact. And we had the golden year, as we will see it for many decades possibly to come, of 2019, when we could travel to more places more safely for less money than ever before. And I put out a tweet 15 minutes past midnight on New Year's Day 2020 saying, oh, what a fantastic year it's going to be even better this year. So that lasted well. But we at the moment you start thinking everything's going fantastically well, you need to be worrying, because first of all, it's not going to be going very well for some time. Secondly, you need to be coming up with different ways of enthralling the traveller, of persuading them to do more travelling, because it's the best experience that anybody can have. You need to be talking to journalists, to the PR industry, and you need to be absolutely focusing on what do travellers want, what can we give them that they don't know that they want at the moment, how are we going to make this better, safer, more inspirational. So there's always plenty to be doing. And similarly in travel journalism, you know, that is the imperative as well. What can we be doing to inspire, to inform, to entertain readers, listeners, viewers, that is going to be of maximum value to them? And of course, they will tell you.
Let's segue from what inspires the reader and viewer to what inspires you. Lindsay Devon, founder of Heaven Publicity, says, can you share a travel experience, Simon, that fundamentally changed the way that you view our world?
Ooh, that's very kind of you, Lindsay. Yeah, I can. I was 6, and I was in Crawley, and my parents, and I dare say social services might be called at this stage if it happened today, thought, okay, oh my goodness, you know, it's summer. We got, it was me and my 7-year-old sister, Sarah, and they signed us up for the Woodcraft Folk, which is a very left-wing version of the Scouts and Guides combined. And we were put on a bus and we went to the Lake District, and we were just camping. And yeah, there were adults around, so it wasn't entirely kind of just you know, kids go wild in Cumberland as it was then, or Westmoreland, I dare say. And honestly, it just opened my eyes to the wonders of the natural world. And then when I was 13, I realized that you could hitchhike to Brighton, and what a brilliant city that is then and now. I mean, this was somewhere in the 1970s. You had gay pubs. How brilliant is that? That was the future. It was so exotic, so enthralling. And so, yeah, just childhood experiences. Just suddenly the world went from black and white to Technicolor, and it's been like that ever since, especially watching and going on the Sound of Music trail.
Brighton is still full of Woodcraft folk, Simon. I'll take you around and introduce you to them.
Ah, fantastic. Anyway, but no, what a great city, and how lucky to be. Well, so when I was growing up in Crawley, I didn't necessarily think how lucky to be growing up in Crawley, but you did have an airport there where you could get some experience and some work, and you did have the most wonderful town then, now city, just 23 miles away down the A23.
So we have a lovely question from freelance travel writer Sam Murray. Simon, you're going to have to answer this. Have you embraced AI in your writing yet?
Sam, what a great question. Thank you very much indeed, because it gives us a chance to talk about AI. I am actually just an AI. It's a bit like if you've seen ABBA Voyage. Well, that's me at the moment. No, I haven't. Except for a bit of entertainment value, I do a podcast called You Should Have Been There, and occasionally we will just call up so if you want to describe, for example, some of the appeal of the island of Menorca, we'll do that, and then we'll put a silly generated a synthetic voice on that and make it absolutely clear what's happening. No, so AI, very exciting, very interesting. Ultimately, though, at the moment, it is dependent on what's on the internet for content, and therefore, it's whatever you're writing, AI might well be delving around and helping me to tell people what Menorca is like. Of course, AI doesn't have personality yet, and that is the great thing that people can bring to it. And I've got no, in terms of research, like many of the journalists on here, I would say probably at the moment, I'm happy just to can't use Google or whatever, but increasingly, I think people will be using AI much more. I mean, the whole thing is frankly quite terrifying, Sam. So good luck with it. I'll be, I'll be pensioned off by the time AI is actually, I think, writing competent, inspiring, entertaining, and interesting copy.
Everyone, we've just got a couple more minutes. If you want to get a question in, this is your chance. I've got one I want to ask Simon from Natasha Osorio, UK Media Relations Lead at Expedia. Simon, we hope you're never going to be pensioned off. She doesn't say that, I say that, but she says, we love you to bits, Simon Calder, but if you were to ever retire, we just our fingers crossed you never will, but who do you think should take on the baton and become the next supreme travel expert broadcaster?
Well, that's very, very nice of you, Natasha. I'm actually technically incapable of retiring because I'm a freelance, and therefore I've got nothing really I can retire from. Oh, there's so many great people out there. Lisa Minnow, she's brilliant on screen, on radio, in print at the Sun, travel editor, so she's terrific. Rob Staines from Rip Off Britain, he's marvelous. Holly Rubenstein, really successful podcast where she basically just talks to travelers, talks to celebrities. It's fantastic, really straightforward concept. I urge you to read that. I think it's the second most popular in the UK after Claire Balding's Ramblings. She's great too. And the great wonder of this age is that, for example, there's a guy, he must be 23 now, Sean Moulton, who just understands airline scheduling better than anybody else I've ever met. And so he's got a blog, he's got the information at his fingertips, he can tell you exactly what's going to be happening with airline fleets in years to come. So it's fantastic. There's so many great people, and frankly, the sooner they come along and displace me, the better for all of us.
Say not so, Simon. Say not so. Okay, a couple of really quick ones then. Justine King, who's posted a couple of questions, says, do you think the industry should be making it easier for people to travel with their pets abroad?
Yes, I do. But on the other hand, we've managed to go for a whole hour without saying it. Brexit, the most disastrous thing from a travel point of view we could ever have contemplated. And it's awful. And please, everybody, if you've got any Irish blood, please get your Irish passport. It's going to make your life so much easier. It's really expensive. It's really difficult. It's awful. But that's what we chose. And we've got blue passports to celebrate. So while you're spending more time with your passport, while queuing up with all those great people from Tonga and Venezuela, who are also third country nationals, you can be so proud of what we've achieved. So thank you. But yeah, there definitely is. We need more pet friendly things, because I want people need to be able to celebrate the world, and the tougher it is, So yes, thank you.
I don't think the friction of Brexit's ever going to happen. The EU have just put back again their new technology for admitting Brits to Europe.
Well, but if you get stuck behind somebody, behind the Airbus A380 at Malpensa Airport, which has just come in from Dubai, full of 600 third country nationals, and your EasyJet plane touches down late behind it, you will know about it, Henry, because you're going to be there for an hour and a half. So it's but the postponement is a welcome thing. I don't know. I mean, we asked for it, so I think that's good. And my quick prophecy, if I may, yes. Part of the problem is fingerprinting. I think by the time it actually becomes imposed, I think they might have forgotten about that fingerprinting bit, because facial biometrics will be so good. So to the extent that even this AI representation of me is fooling some people.
To everyone whose questions we haven't got round to taking, I do apologise, but thank you so much for the quality of questions we've had today. We do need to call time there. Simon's got work to do. He's a 24/365 man. Just a huge vote of thanks from me for the enthralling and riveting session that we've just had with Simon. It's been a huge pleasure, Simon. Thank you so much.
Well, it's been great to answer all those questions. You can find me online. The easiest way is probably X, formerly Twitter, at Simon Calder. You can DM me, you can send a message. I will do what I can to respond. I'm really sorry and embarrassed about the technical fail halfway through, but at least we did have a cunning backup plan, which I hope is means that it's not too embarrassing anyway. And thank you so much for your great chairing of this, Henry, and look forward to seeing everybody individually and collectively again soon. So enjoy your evening. I shall now go off and do whatever you do on a cruise ship at what's now 3 minutes past 6 local time.
You've been brilliant, Simon. We've enjoyed it so much. And thank you to our audience from the UK and around the world for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you next time on TravMedia Meets. Thanks for joining us, everyone.